just a crazy conspiracy theorist. You're just this guy who's just, you go around going, one more thing. Were the lines drawn when you were? Oh, let's get down to it then. Liverpool lose 2-1 away from home against Spurs, and there are just so many confusing moments in this game. Even Jurgen himself here is confused. This face, my friends, is a confused face. Maybe with his own team at this point, but possibly with the referee, and possibly just with everything that went on. Spurs are a hard team to play, and I actually thought this would have been Liverpool's biggest test of the season so far. We can no longer call it that because of some of the confusion, because of some of the decisions, because of all those things so far this season. There is an argument that Liverpool, if they wanted to consider themselves title challengers, if they wanted to even consider themselves in a hope of getting top four this season, they should have beaten everyone on the list so far this season, and probably, possibly, more convincing than they already have, even without exception of Aston Villa and Newcastle United. And there will be some people in the comments who disagree, but I'm fine with that. The whole point is, if Liverpool want to be good again, then they have to be winning big games. But a big game like this is not decided, in the end, by the decisions of the players, although I can now get into that. On a weird day like this, where you see a brilliant result for Arsenal, when you see a confusing and probably blip decision or blip result for Man City, and obviously that Manchester United result, that's just 1-0. Eric Ten Hag looked a bit, yeah. Anyway, you think to yourself, right, this Liverpool team can step up now. This Liverpool team are capable of putting something together that's different to some what these other guys are doing, possibly with only Arsenal as an exception. And Man City are above that. They're not subject to the same rules as everyone else in this league. Liverpool put out this side, right? There was a side which you think should be able to win that game, and that shows Klopp has a very clear game plan where he wants to go in the way of just tactics in this game, right? And clearly he's trying to cancel out some or a lot of what it is that Ange Postecoglou is trying to do. He's seen the Arsenal game in the weeks before that. He's seen what it is that Ange and this Spurs team are capable of. He's seen that he needs to plug up certain parts of the field in order to stop underlapping, overlapping, and sometimes overloading, right? And that is exactly what you do with Andy Robertson, Joe Gomez, Joel Matip, Virgil van Dijk, and Curtis and McAllister sitting a little deeper. You didn't start with Endo. They didn't start with a more defensive player. They didn't even start with the Gravenberch in this game. They started with Akpo, who would drop deeper. They then put Salah and Diaz even higher up the field. And I can show you in a little while what that did, what the impact was on the game. And I can show you that in the first half, it meant that Liverpool created a lot more meaningful moments in terms of, early on there, and then a couple later on, and obviously the later on one got the goal. But my point is here, right? What they did was they went, we're going to allow Spurs to have the ball, and we're going to press you, right? So Spurs were trying to get Liverpool to trigger presses all over the place, and at times it was working, but at times the press was also really working. So it was kind of this game of cat and mouse. Liverpool knew what Spurs were trying to do, but also Liverpool kind of wanted to press. They kind of wanted to go out there and try and win the ball back. There were times where they were winning it back. There were times when the first press didn't work, the shadows were working. And Liverpool actually looked relatively comfortable, despite Spurs having the upper hand, shall we say, at least on possession. I don't think that they actually had the better of the possession. This graph here, all of these graphs here, I'm not sure if you can quite see it. Let me zoom in there. I can zoom in a little bit more there, possibly. Anyway, there are like two tones of colour here, and there's kind of a line here. I'm just going to double click that. There's a line like here, and there's a line like here. And every time you cross that line, it means you're doing more meaningful things. For a long time here, Spurs are not really doing anything all that meaningful. There's possibly a bit of something there, a bit of something there, and there's something there, and people go, oh, well, Spurs controlled this game, blah, blah, blah. No, you are wrong. You can tell me, oh yeah, well, I thought Spurs were good. And that is something that's relative to where Spurs were before. It's not a reflection of where Arsenal are, where Liverpool are, where any of these teams are. That's not to say I don't think Spurs were good in this game. It's just to say I don't think that some of the analysis and some of the eye tests are valid eye tests in this game. And I don't think they're reflections of where Liverpool really were in this match. Anyway, in steps Simon Hooper. Fantastic referee. Not someone who was suspended earlier this season after a series of interesting decisions in the Manchester United Wolves game. They're up, by the way. The video is not sponsored by them, but if you want to, I'd really appreciate it. Very good stuff. each. You're not meant to tip it like that, but you know. I'm just going to insert this here because you probably already heard it from about 50 different people, but you know, the outrage is one thing, and I will get to that later in the video, but the fact that I come away from this game with more belief in this Liverpool side than I went into it with, and the fact that I came away from this game thinking, hey, there is still a massive gap to the ceiling that this Liverpool team have, and the fact that obviously, you know, Liverpool keep getting red cards and there are, you know, reasons to doubt elements of what is going on, but not for the long term, is amazing. This side, tactically, are progressing. They are moving forward. People doubted Klopp. They said, oh, Klopp is done. There's no way that Klopp can compete in this league. The only way that Klopp hasn't competed this season is when Liverpool, even when Liverpool aren't on level terms in terms of players or in terms of just anything like that, even then, it's like, what? Like, this team still step up. They have incredible self-belief. They have incredible ideas about how they can play the opposition. Anyone who's put in front of them, Liverpool feel confident they can beat. And you know, I know that there will probably be arguments that, hey, Curtis Jones maybe lost his head, or, you know, Jota shouldn't have done this or that. People can make those arguments. That's not to say that this Liverpool team aren't moving forward. That's not to say this Liverpool team are even anywhere near their peak. They've only been playing this way now for about 16, 17, possibly a few more games. So this Liverpool side are putting something serious together. Before we get into all the fume and everything else, don't miss the positives that come away from this. Sure, it's 3 points dropped, and actually Liverpool could have been top of the table this evening. But broadly, on top of that, there's something really good going on here with Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool, and we should be congratulating that. I kind of get into elements of that, but I have to intersperse it with the negativity that's going around at the moment. The fact of the matter is, Liverpool look pretty good right now, and it took some awful refereeing decisions, which I'll get onto later. It took some awful decisions from elsewhere, and, you know, relatively good goals from Spurs, actually, to take Liverpool apart. Even when they were down to 10 men by then. So let's not miss that. Let's not miss the wood for the trees here. Do you know what I'm saying? Not sponsored. In steps Simon Hooper. Simon, I don't think, wants to make a name for himself. I don't think... Simon made the game. Let's start a few sentences all at once and see which one ends well. Simon did have control of the game. But he had such control of the game because no one wanted to do anything for fear that Simon would react. Because Simon gave out 13 cards in this game, one of which he obviously took back because he turned it into a red for Curtis Jones. Now, I don't think that Simon Hooper is the only person responsible for the decisions made in today's game. And, you know, obviously you guys will agree with that, right? We'll go into some of these decisions. I think a witch hunt over individuals and saying that this is down to incompetence, or whatever you want to call it, is part of an overall bigger argument. But I don't necessarily think that Simon is an incompetent referee, even though some of his own colleagues and his higher-ups might have you believe that. I'm going to be nice. I know some of you want me to be passive-aggressive. I thought Simon had a good game. Anyway, Simon then decides, I'm going to change the game. And the way that he does that, and again, not really his decision, but kind of his decision, is the Curtis Jones decision with La Red, right? First of all, it can be that you think it's not a red card and that someone else might. Red cards are sometimes subjective decisions. And in this instance, actually, the yellow that Simon gave felt like it worked in that moment. Because as Gary Neville said, and as a lot of other people in commentary have said, it didn't, in the pace of the game, in where the game was going at the time, it didn't feel like a red card because it didn't look all that fast. When you slow something down, you take the pace out of it, you decide to go, okay, let's see technically where his studs then landed. First of all, when Simon then walks over to the screen after he's been called over by VAR, he arrives to an image of the absolute worst moment of where Curtis Jones was with his studs in the leg of Yves Bissouma. Now, we can go back to Alfred Hitchcock and the way that he talks about if you cut a shot of an old man, followed by a shot of a baby, followed by a shot of an old man smiling, that old man looks happy, right? And of course, the baby has pleased him, right? Because it might be his grandchild, it might be someone lovely, right? It might be a lovely memory that he's having. It might be something in there where people go, oh my God, like, look, that's a grandfather smiling at a beautiful young girl that he relates to. But if you put a woman in a bikini turning over in between the shot of the old man looking and the old man smiling, suddenly the old man becomes a pervert. Potentially. Potentially, some people might not think he's a pervert. They might just think he's an old man appreciating something else. But that's not for me to say. The point is, and most of the time people will think he's a pervert because, old men smiling at young. The point is not whether he is a famous celebrity of a big TV institution or not. The point is that if you cut those shots in that order, then what you get is a representation of what you saw biased. It's an edit. And what VAR is an edit of what the people at VAR want Simon to see. So what we now have to question is whether the people at VAR are capable of showing a balanced and presenting a balanced argument to Simon in order to make him or help him make the right decision. My argument in this instance is no. At that point in the game, it was the right decision to give him a yellow card, and I can see why you would give a red. But I think the way it was presented ended up in Curtis Jones getting a red. And I could see from there on out that the VAR was not being operated, and I'm going to call this competently. And I can show you why. But it changed the game entirely. There have been brilliant think pieces and brilliant analysis this week and over the past weeks of Curtis Jones. First of all on TIFO. Secondly, James Alcott's channel. Thirdly, lots of other brilliant places, right? Back to back. They've shown how he is a facilitator for Liverpool, how he's someone who basically does an element of what Gino Wijnaldum used to do, an element of what Thiago could do, an element of just rotating the ball, an element of what Jordan Henderson was doing at one point for Liverpool. Just lots of different elements, lots of cover, lots of thinking, lots of just good passing, lots of just retention of the ball. A little less risk, but like when he's on the ball, he passes the eye test because technically he is so brilliant. When he's not on the field, it then puts a bit more pressure on these men. Virgil van Dijk, a guy who actually had a really good first half, partly due to Curtis Jones, but also partly because, and this is stats from Statman Dave, 96% pass accuracy, 35 touches, most of his passes completed, a lot of his long balls completed, 3 blocks, 2 tackles, 2 out of 2 tackles won, 1 assist, and 2 aerial duels won. He was brilliant. He really was. He was a captain performance. And he was returning after it was, and obviously he's returned before, but he's returning to the Premier League after abusing a referee. I can't say that I think this is retribution for that. I can't say that. But it gave Alisson a hard time. And it gave Gomez a hard time. And I've not pictured Matip because I will picture or speak about Joel Matip later. By the way, Joe Gomez, the man. I made this graphic myself. Joe Gomez is the man. Last season, and I will speak about this now before we go on to another decision because I know everyone's absolutely raring to hear the decision ideas rather than the actual tactics. I think Liverpool were good in this game. Last season, Liverpool didn't have the adaptable backline they now have. Joel Matip now looks comfortable in a number of different areas on the field. Don't talk to me, and obviously don't talk to me about the own goal, but he still looks comfortable predominantly throughout, right? I know he scored the own goal, and I know that was probably because he was out of position as a centre-back. Virgil van Dijk should have probably been there. And Liverpool probably should have committed a foul in the lead up to that. But the point is, the back line now feels or looks a lot more comfortable, adapting all over the place and putting players where they need to be. Last season, it was very much, if Van Dijk wasn't in the right position, Konate wasn't in the right position. If Van Dijk wasn't in the right position, Robertson wasn't in the right position. If Van Dijk wasn't in the right position, Trent wasn't in the right position because the midfield was all over the place. Liverpool didn't understand the spaces they were trying to occupy. And clearly now they've done the right drills to get Liverpool to the right place to understand where it is they need to be at any one point and look comfortable, accomplished. Doesn't mean that Spurs didn't have some really good opportunities. I thought Alisson made some incredible saves in this game. And some of them were incredible, some of them very easy, some of them I would not describe any of them as world class. I would describe all of them as good. Right? They're the kind of things that, though, when David De Gea used to make those kind of saves, United fans would absolutely, he's brilliant. He's absolutely fantastic, guys. Oh, yeah? Cool. Yeah, Alisson, probably one of the best goalkeepers ever to play in the Premier League. Just give you a minute. Fume over it. Go on. Probably a Liverpool fan, if you watch to this point. In steps VAR again. How long are we into this? Too long would be the answer. Luis Diaz scores an offside goal. We didn't get to see the lines in the UK, and Sky didn't know why. Sky originally were presented with graphics without those on. And literally, This Is Anfield tweeted, Sky Sports say they haven't been provided with an image of the offside lines for Luis Diaz's disallowed goal. Why might that be? Indeed, why might that be? Satisfying. beIN Sports, by the way. beIN Sport drew this line on. Was this beIN Sport? Was this beIN Sport? That might be beIN Sport. This might be someone with a ruler. People on Twitter started doing things with rulers. Not a big fan of people doing things on Twitter. I think a lot of people on Twitter really don't know about the perspective of cameras. But to the naked eye, he looks very much onside. To the line, he looks very much onside. To beIN Sport, I know that's a picture of a screen, but I'd imagine that beIN Sport have much better ideas of perspective than we do. And maybe beIN Sport they are the host broadcaster of the Premier League in that country, but maybe they feel a little more comfortable criticising the Premier League, maybe because they're not in bed with them as comfortably as some other people in the industry. But let's pass that one over. They drew the lines on. And he was comfortably onside. He then comfortably finished. By the way, how often is it that Liverpool this season have put a player through and then he scored brilliantly from a wide angle beyond the goalkeeper from kind of that Nunez-Diaz position, right? A lot. 3 times now, by the way. But you can't go back in a game and give a goal again, can you? Can you? Can you? Can you? No. Would have put Liverpool in a pretty good position at the time. Despite being down, they were, as they always are, box office, chipper, into the game, always trying to score, always trying to put Spurs on the back foot, always trying to change, do something different to try to get this Spurs team confused, to try to do something that puts Liverpool on the front foot. VAR didn't show that because I don't think they had done that at the time. And if they had they done it right? We won't get the transparency for a while. Maybe we'll get a nicely presented piece at some point. But what I'm sick of in this industry, and what I keep hearing is, and what I have heard from some people recently, obviously I work as a YouTuber, I do this channel, that's to do what I do with you guys. That's because I want to build a profile enough that I can direct things in the industry, that I can do other things. Someone told me the other day was this: if you keep criticising the Premier League, if you keep criticising big clubs, you won't get any jobs with those big clubs. And I've covered this before on this channel, but it made me think, these huge institutions, if they think that they're above criticism, if they think that the bad PR comes from someone like me on this channel being critical, then I think that shows they know nothing about modern media. And I think it shows that they don't understand the way that normal fans talk to each other now. I was literally told that by someone in a meeting. Do you know how frustrating that is? To be honest about what I really think and then be told, oh, don't be honest about what you think. Play the game. And it's called playing the game, by the way. It's called playing the game. Play the game. You know, you've got to play the game. You've got to grease the right palms, bro. Got to get in there. You know, if you want to be a director, then don't tell the truth or what you think. You know, just lacquer it up a little. Who are you, Matthew McConaughey in a meeting? Don't tell the truth. Anyway, Liverpool looked in pretty good position. By the way, this guy, Mo Salah, by the way, what a facilitator. Switching from wing to wing within the game, using his incredible pace, granted, not the incredible pace that we once knew, but still incredible pace, but he didn't really need to use his strength. What I think a lot of people realize is if you get into a body tussle, should we say, with Mo Salah, you lose. Don't do that. Hang off him a little bit, let him make a decision, and then make a tackle from distance. If he gets beyond you, fair play, which he did get beyond Yves Bissouma. That was given as a foul. Yves Bissouma then did a tackle on Endo, handed him in the face, probably just as much of a red as anything else in the game. Wasn't given. But this shows how deep Virgil van Dijk was and how important it is to have Virgil van Dijk in those kind of positions in both halves. He was probably a lot less deep. He was probably more like here in the first half and then got put back obviously in the second. And the same with Joel Matip actually. Joel Matip ended up here. Virgil van Dijk at times ended up here. Joe Gomez at times ended up as part of a back three. Endo kind of ended up a little bit deeper. I'll tell you in a minute. Anyway, Spurs, arguably, this is the most bunched up that they've actually looked in quite a while. Normally, they're a little bit more spread out, a little bit more down here. Richarlison really, Liverpool pocketed him relatively. It was this side where Liverpool really struggled. And Kulusevski is a fantastic player, world class, by the way. And Spurs, none of this is in criticism of Spurs. Spurs were fantastic, I thought. Although, could have made more of the fact that Liverpool were down to 9 men. And I think actually Spurs looked relatively unable to break down a 9-man side rather than an 11-man team. It almost would have been, this is the thing that's really frustrating, right? Did you shake? If you'd left 11 men on for both teams, I'm not saying, if you'd left the game and let it be more entertaining, it would be better. Yeah, of course. Well, maybe someone shouldn't have made stupid tackles. Maybe someone should have been a little more careful with their body. Then the game would have been more entertaining. And it probably would have got better football out of Spurs. Probably would have got better football out of Liverpool. They wouldn't have had to have been as, should we say, conservative. Spurs then score, fantastic goal, doing exactly what you want to do against Liverpool, cutting in from the sides, using the width against Liverpool. That's exactly where Liverpool don't want you to be. They want you to be compressed down the middle. They want you to go wide, but they're not cut into those middle areas. It's exactly what Ange Postecoglou is targeting right now. It's exactly what he's done against a number of sides, and they carved Liverpool open. Arguably, I can't show you the average positions in the first half, but arguably, because look at that, there's loads of space in these areas, right? And obviously there's loads of space in these areas, but these two kind of areas here, right? The Spurs want to get into here with overlapping runs, and then Maddison putting in balls from here, and basically just facilitative area here being used to facilitate there, cut back, and get around the good players. It worked. It was brilliant. Not only that, but you've got Yves Bissouma driving in from the midfield there. You've got Sards driving in from that side. Liverpool shouldn't have been able to cope with this without someone like Curtis Jones. By the way, look at how facilitative, look at how supportive Curtis Jones is up front. Basically, making a front four. This was 2-4-2. 2-4-4. 2-4-2? Should have been at the end. Anyway, Curtis Jones was really facilitating Luis Diaz. We will talk about one more great thing about Mo Salah in a second. The facilitation of Mo Salah is insane. We'll talk about that again in a second. Cody Gakpo then does what Cody Gakpo does. Cody Van Nistelrooy is what I'm going to call him. This guy gets the ball just outside the 6-yard box, turns and scores. Ruud Van Nistelrooy-esque. Even though he's a little bit different frame, all these kind of things. A little bit different. All I'm saying is, it's what happened. And Liverpool were back on terms. And the Premier League, well, there is no conspiracy theories in the Premier League. These are the subs in the second half, right? 2 players were sent off, so Liverpool were down to basically 2 banks of 4. Actually, more like 2 banks of 4. This was weirdly without the subs, but 2 banks of 4 basically, right? Weirdly though, they still tried to get Robertson on his bike. They still tried to get Trent on his bike. They still tried to get Szoboszlai breaking from around this. Really should just take all these lines because it's going to annoy you, isn't it? They still tried to get Szoboszlai breaking from this kind of area. Endo was like really high up the field. I think Klopp was trying to do something that was going to confuse Spurs a little bit. He's really good at winning the ball back, but sadly his distribution isn't quite there. Szoboszlai won the ball back in different positions. Maybe it works differently. Obviously that's not Curtis at this point. It's someone else. And then they were going to bring Nunez on. And then what happens? Well, by the way, Spurs at this point still looking relatively good, but if anything, a little bit wider at this point. They're trying to go wider than Liverpool. It's working. Let's talk about Jota. Jota came on he went onto the right wing, and I thought he was brilliant. He offered really great cover at right back, and he offered a great defensive outlet, but also offensive outlet when Liverpool, first of all, wanted to win the ball back, and then he would try and get it inside, and then Liverpool try and work it to the other side, and there was loads of space over there. The other aspect was, so Liverpool trying to work the ball to the opposite side from where they were, and that would open up Spurs massively. Salah tried it a number of times, Jota tried it a number of times, Szoboszlai was really key to it. There was a moment where Luis Diaz was out on the left, and Salah was just running into pure space, and Luis Diaz just could not release the ball. Spurs were still wide open because they were basically still playing like an 11-man Liverpool, because as people like James Alcott have done, as lots of different great analysts have said, Liverpool compress the field to the areas where they really want to play, right? And they know how to compress the field. So Liverpool are dangerous. You essentially awaken a beast when you put Liverpool into 9 men. And that's kind of what I thought when it was like, when Curtis Jones went off, I was like, yeah, we'll still win. When this guy went off, I still had a bit of hope, because this Liverpool team do not know when they are beaten. This Liverpool team do not know when to quit. And they were still not quitting right the way to the end. Gravenberch, when he's coming on, got a smile on his face. Klopp has still got a smile on his face, even though they've gone down. Liverpool's still complaining, obviously, but you get my point. This guy. El nombre. Gilo. Been doing the gaming. Gamers don't really look like that anymore, do they? Looks a bit like Danny Aaron's. Not really. Jota, I love you. You are fantastic. You're a smart guy. I like what you say. I like what you do. The first yellow was not warranted. But the second decision after the yellow, the way you played it, the way you didn't really even touch him, and the way the referee gave the card, I felt was harsh. But you didn't touch him, but it was a silly decision to dive in, but you didn't really touch him. And the referee, again, Simon Hooper, dived in, made another silly decision, and essentially made a rod for his own back by this point that he could not give up. Frustratingly, it meant that Jota and Liverpool suffered. Liverpool had incredible cover on that side, way more balance. They would have been able to bring on Darwin Núñez, they would have been able to bring on Trent, and they would have been able to do something, because Trent would have been able to wander all over, because someone like Jota can cover that side, because then you've got a break with Núñez. Maybe they should have still brought on Núñez, but Liverpool had to change things a little bit, right? Because, well, look, when you go down to 9 men, when you lose a couple of these guys, it becomes a lot harder, right? Anyway, the point is, Liverpool then they basically went to 3 centre-backs, and things changed a little bit. You can't really blame Jurgen Klopp for making that decision. Obviously, the meta of that is then Virgil van Dijk's in the middle, Matip's on the other side, and Konate is a bit more aggressive. He's going out there and just trying to win tackles. Ultimately, does it result in the goal? There's possibly like a really long butterfly effect that says, yeah, like it does, but really it doesn't. Really, it is Spurs' great width, great pressure, and the fact that Liverpool are playing so intensely that leads to a mistake from Joel Matip. But in both of these instances, Liverpool trying to press and play the way that Liverpool play, red cards were led to by both of those. And I can tell you why, right? In the one with Jota, he's tried to play through, lost the ball, tried to win it back. Possibly because he's tried to play through in a position where possibly Liverpool, when they compress the field, what they want to do is they then want to offer lots of options to get Jota out of that position. But he's a great ball carrier and they want him to carry it forward. They do the 5-a-side pitches for exactly this reason. Carry the ball and pass the ball quickly, move in really nice shapes. Liverpool are working on that a lot at the moment. Didn't quite work out. He dives in, gets the red. By the way, Udogie didn't trip himself up the first time. He did get a little nick from Jota. I don't know if that is to warrant a yellow, but you don't know if it's deliberate or not. Udogie puts his body across him. It is what it is. With the intensity of the way that Liverpool press, you're also going to get red cards like this. Because maybe the pressing isn't part of that, but in the desperation to win the ball back, the intensity that Liverpool play at, they kind of need to frighten the opposition. If you do not get rid of the ball in time, then this is going to happen to you. Not fouls, not horrible leg breaks, but basically you're going to get in trouble, right? And you're going to get pressed back. And there might be a moment where you could lose the ball. There'll be desperation for Liverpool to win it back. Curtis Jones is a leader. It's now swapped for a straight red, which means we'll miss him for a couple of games, disappointingly. But Ryan Gravenberch, thankfully, will probably be in, and that will look fantastic because Ryan looks amazing. Spurs then really didn't press Liverpool nearly as much as they should have, but they had absolute control of the game. Look, if you look at this is what people will show you. They'll show you the whole game. How Spurs averaged 2.1 expected goals, so really they scored as many goals as they should do. The expected assists is probably similar. Liverpool probably scored as many goals as they should. And ball possession, obviously Spurs had way more. Liverpool went down to 9 men. They had twice as many shots. Of course they did. They went down to 9 men. They had twice as many shots on target. Probably should have had way more than that, but didn't. Shots off target, Liverpool just tried a few shots, had a lot of blocks. And there were obviously a lot of block shots for Liverpool, right? But look at the breakdown of the actual halves. First half, sorry, that's all. First half, 1-1. The first half finished 1-1. Expected assists, very similar. Both teams actually relatively similar, despite the fact that Spurs dominate the possession, but don't dominate the game. At that point, Liverpool ahead on total shots. At that point, Liverpool are looking actually pretty comfortable from a Liverpool fan's perspective and Jurgen Klopp's perspective. He'll be saying to the team, we're going to sub off one of these players because Gakpo is the kind of player that can drop a little bit deeper. We'll turn it around and we will push forward and we'll have someone like Jota out on that wing. Cool. Second half, that all changes and it's because of the red card in terms of possession. Obviously, Spurs were still going to dominate possession. Liverpool were going to try and counter-attack. That's fine. That's what you want to do if you're down to 10 men. It's what they did against Newcastle. It's what they shouldn't have had to do against McAllister. Against Brighton. Was it Brighton? When McAllister got sent off, right? Silly. Spurs only averaged 1 goal in the second half. Liverpool barely averaged anything because they kept getting pushed wide, and obviously they didn't have many people who could support. They were trying to get people through the middle, couldn't quite get there. It wasn't quite working. Anyway, possession-wise, Spurs absolutely bossed it. I still can't quite see why Spurs were celebrating in the way they were at the end, but I will do a video on Spurs at another point and we'll talk about that. I do think Spurs are a great team. I do think Ange's a great manager. I do think there's got to be something there where we sort of go, okay, but I can see a ceiling here because I can see a ceiling there. The point being, right, Spurs didn't make the most of that, and they could have made the most of that. And what's really weird about it is, like, Liverpool compressed the right parts of the field. They did the right things when they went down to 10. They did the right things when they went down to 9, and they lost the game. And they're going to feel hard done by in this one. They're going to feel like they've played other matches and played worse almost. This whole Liverpool team can hold their head up. This whole Liverpool team can be proud of what it is that they have done. They have missed an opportunity to go top of the league because of this result. This result for Wolves. But what I will say is this. It's not about having finished 7 games, therefore we're on 7 points. Sometimes that can impact your mentality. It's about the order at which you play people. Obviously, Liverpool's still got to play Spurs again. Obviously, City have still got to play Spurs again. Loads of other people have still got to play Spurs. Spurs are a hard team to play right now. And beating Liverpool like this, beating Liverpool in such a fashion, probably will give them a bit of confidence, weirdly. Even though it was a Joel Matip own goal, and actually the goalkeeper probably falls on it if Joel Matip doesn't get it. But it is what it is. Before this, by the way, I was going to pick out a number of good players for Liverpool. I thought Virgil van Dijk was fantastic today. I thought Andy Robertson was really fantastic. I thought Joe Gomez was incredible, as I've already said. I thought he was the man. I actually think the two in midfield here both left a couple of passes still to be played, and both had a couple of times where they either underplayed the pass or overplayed the pass, and maybe they were trying to do just a little much because they were trying to cover for Curtis Jones. McAllister obviously had to come over. Szoboszlai had to come a little bit more central, get him a little bit less support to Salah. But I loved the balls from Salah, which basically pick out Luis Diaz at the far post at any one point, and basically Luis Diaz loves getting into those positions. Salah knows he can always play that ball. That's why Liverpool didn't let go of him for such a high fee. He has been, again, in a counter-attacking Liverpool side, absolutely fantastic. And what's disappointing about it is we didn't get to see Nunez, Salah and someone else in combination up front, even down to 10 men. By the way, Alisson, world-class, best goalkeeper in the world. Don't even at me here. There is no better goalkeeper right now. He makes amazing saves. He is solid, commands his box. I think the main issue with him in this game probably was distribution, but that's also because of the way that they're now playing the ball and sort of doing this like weird little... They're doing different patterns which don't always favour Alisson. They probably favour the back four rather than Alisson. They probably favour someone like McAllister dropping in and giving them options than it does someone like the King that is Alisson. So, yeah, look, this guy's a king. That's not a crown. That's a crown. Or is it just a really good birthday cake? Anyway, Liverpool will be really disappointed they lost this one. I've done this pre-looking at Jurgen Klopp's post-match comments. I wonder if I go onto Twitter right now, if I see a Jurgen Klopp post-match comment. Let me just very quickly, let me go on X and take a look. Oh, some of the old tweets are blowing up. I said the game's the game. The whole team can hold their head up high, including Matip. PGMOL acknowledge a significant human error during the first half. Oh my God. This is like breaking for me on my timeline, obviously. The PGMOL acknowledged a significant human error occurred during the first half of Tottenham vs Liverpool. The goal by Luis Diaz was disallowed offside by the on-field team of match officials. This was a clear and obvious factual error and should have resulted in the goal being awarded through VAR intervention. However, VAR failed to intervene. PGMOL will conduct a full review of the circumstances which led to this error. PGMOL will immediately be contacting Liverpool at the conclusion of the fixture to acknowledge the error. This game finishes differently if Liverpool go in at half-time 2-2, 2-1 up, 2-2. This is insane to say this. The referee... Whatever, Jurgen Klopp has called them crazy and unfair decisions, and rightly so. Jurgen Klopp should empty... It's insane. Obviously, the idea is not to make mistakes, but admitting major errors is part of how Webb's drive for accountability, is what someone just tweeted. Absolute rubbish. Simon Stone of the BBC, drive for accountability. God, it's like someone's on the tape from 10 Downing Street, the BBC. This is insane. I'm sorry. It's just mental. Alisson Becker, you're amazing, but every other aspect of this game was insane. Don't apologise. Get it right. That is exactly why VAR came in. Now I'm angry, because before I was like, oh, you're just a crazy conspiracy theorist. You're just this guy who's just, you go around going, one more thing. Were the lines drawn when you said it was offside and you agreed with your on-field friends? Because you can tell me if they weren't. Oh, they weren't. Oh, okay. Oh, right. Yeah. And one more thing. Was it onside? Oh, it was. Oh, okay. It's just broken me. I felt like I had a really good, how long was that? It was like 20, 25 minutes. Are you mad? You cannot acknowledge that a goal was not given because of human error and then not replay the game, not do something about all of these decisions, not allow Curtis Jones back on the field. You cannot say then that right, here's another issue on top of this, right? How do we know that if the decision for that was made in that way, then presenting the data in that way shouldn't have been done? That all these issues, the red card for Curtis Jones, should it have been displayed in that way to the referee? Should they have told him to go over to the screen? We can't rely on this at this point. This is unreliable data that the referees are being given. And I get it, there will be human error. And I get it, without VAR, still being called as offside. So that is another aspect of it. But the point is that he feels okay to put up his flag on the field and call it offside because he feels like he has VAR to fall back on. Oh, if I'm wrong, then VAR will correct me. He then has another decision. He has another moment. He goes, did I get that right? I got that right. Great. Well, my eyes are good. No, he was well onside. Honestly, and the fact that this wasn't done the fact that this just wasn't highlighted in the halftime decisions, it was barely highlighted, and then it was just basically highlighted that, we might not have all the information. Fume. And I know people are going to be like, fume more, mate, you lost the game. Like, Liverpool would have been in a winning position finishing the half if they go with all of those. I'm just looking through all of these, right? Mo Salah's gone through and liked. I'm stunned. I know exactly what to say. It's not good enough. Liverpool have been on a great run. They were on 17 unbeaten, or as I previously said, 16 wins. 17 unbeaten. It's stunning that we can get to this point. And Liverpool have been robbed of a legitimate goal in probably the biggest game that they've had so far this season. Sorry, guys, I don't know what else to say. Spurs, I thought you did relatively well. I don't think you were fantastic, but I thought you did relatively well. But you can't be happy with a win like that. Anyway, I really appreciate you guys sticking around, taking the time. Let me know in the comments below. I'll probably do another follow-up video tomorrow, see how this one's doing. I think it's insane that we have to deal with this. Obviously, it's, I can assure you, this isn't only football. This is far more important. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll chat to you guys again in a while. Much love. Just unbelievable. I just